Soundstripe.
Welcome to South End Supporters of St. Louis City SC podcast, powered by Ready Live Wellness, coming at you from the Warrior Logo Wear Studio. Eric Cole here with the Monday Morning center back Dave Wyckoff, as DH is out tonight, as I'm sure he was more stressed than a City fan with a 1-0 lead when they decided to park the bus, as his daughter was playing sectionals volleyball, Scarlett, my niece, and we just got the text that they are going to state. So congrats to them on the victory. We'll miss David, but I'm sure he's out enjoying the night. So good on them.
Got that Muscuda perp going on, and it's always good to beat Edwardsville in anything. I mean, shout out to our Edwardsville.
Is that who they took on?
It was, I believe it was Liberty. I mean, shout out to our Edwardsville listeners and friends, but nobody loves beating anybody more than people love beating Edwardsville. Let's just call that what it is.
I'll say I think everybody on this podcast enjoyed a good Edwardsville.
That's true. It's
beat
true.
down from time to time.
No, but the park and the bus, that was somewhere Jose was smiling fondly, and our buddy Jake was cursing when they decided it was time to put on every defender on the field at once. But man, it was great. It worked out. There's a win and 3 points and goals. How about that?
I know, right? So City do come away with the big win, 3-0 against the reigning MLS champs, LA Galaxy. First off, just great to get back on the scoreboard. I think that was first and foremost. But I'm curious to get your kind of just overall thoughts on the game and kind of where you saw the game. How were you happy with the performance? Were you still leaving some to be desired? For me personally, I felt like, man, it felt like those first 5 minutes, I was like, yes, this is the team we need. With the interlinking play, it felt like the press. I think Twelman even commented something about, like, we held possession for the entire first minute of play. And then it just felt like after about 5 minutes on, we kind of just were absorbing pressure. And we got away from, like, the first 5 minutes of these interlinking plays and stuff that were working and almost kind of reverted back to the old style of either kick it and try and resort on the two strikers to do something with it, or, silly fancy passes. But eventually City kind of did settle in there, and, we saw the flash of what that offense does have the capability of doing. So let's just break it down. Let's go first half first. How are you feeling as far as the first half went?
Yeah, so you're right. The first 5, 8, let's call it even 10, were really City on the front foot, really interchanging and making some great plays, and almost snuck a goal in or two early on. And then they switched to absorbing a little bit of pressure. And I think that was partially tactical. Galaxy made a bit of a switch where they moved Gabriel Peck playing up higher. He's really, and Twelman kind of pointed this out through the broadcast the entire time, out of their starting 11, he's really the only danger in terms of pace that they have. So pushing him up further up the field, the back three really had to respect his pace, and that allowed Marco Royce a little bit more freedom underneath. So Galaxy were able to possess a little bit more. But even then, in the absorb the pressure mode, I felt really good about the first, let's call it 22, maybe 25 around then. I just rewatched the match today, and even when they moved into the, let's absorb the pressure, they weren't backing in as deep as they did against San Diego, and the counters were deadly, especially in the first 20. I mean, you could make an argument that they should have been up 2-0 after the first 20. You had Choo-Choo miss a big chance, which I'm still trying to figure out what he was doing exactly. I think maybe he thought that Wallum was going to be on the back post for a tap in, but he gets to that ball, and it seemed like last season that was a ball that he buries in that lower far corner. So maybe just a little bit of a miscommunication there, or just lack of cohesiveness. But yeah, I thought it looked really well. I thought they did exactly what they needed to do. I think this is the team that you're going to see against teams that want to hold the ball more. This is not the Bradley Carnell, John Hackworth put a lot of pressure on the ball. This is We're going to absorb pressure. We're going to clog the middle. We're going to make teams beat us through possession and through link up play. And it just, they looked really strong. And then Marco Royce hits the post, and it was like the dam broke. And he hits the post because Burki made an outstanding save. But from then up until right the last five, it was a lot of absorbing pressure. And I think Olaf talked about this against San Diego. They really were giving up that line of engagement way too easily. And I place the blame on that for two places. One, your backs have got to hold up their back line. They can't just retreat all the way into their goal. But your midfield, your center mids have got to engage the ball carriers further up the pitch and not just let them walk in 30 yards in and just have these little dink. That's the Galaxy. They're not going to beat you with speed right now. They're just they're too injured. They're too short-handed right now. So they're going to beat you with these tiny link-up plays. And City really backed in and got on their heels and were really, really fortunate. They got saved by a post, and Burki was playing out of his mind in the first half. He makes a great save on Royce. He made a great save. It wasn't Gabriel Peck. It was Ramirez. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just point blank on Ramirez, which probably a better ball from Royce there on the ground. And Ramirez probably puts that away. He did a great job just to put it on net. But
Yeah, no kidding.
but yeah, you can't. And I think that'll get better over time. I think the team will get better and kind of figure that you have to. That line of engagement can't be your own 18 like it was against San Diego. And fortunately, they kept most of the danger chances on the outside, but they gave up more high danger chances in the first half than they have so far anytime this season.
Yeah. One word that you just said there that really stood out to me was cohesive. I texted you guys throughout the game and was just saying, man, there were like during that like spell where City were really absorbing a lot of pressure, especially in that first half, there were a lot of passes that were to be made where, Klaus or Teutschert or somebody would make a run to the right but the person on the ball would be looking for a run to the left. There was just a lot of these passes that it just looked like, man, they just weren't on the same page in that instance. And you brought up a good point with that choo-choo chance or Teutschert chance. Like, man, it did look like a little bit of hesitancy, and then the ball just kept running further and further, and then he realized, oh, I have to take this on. Still was a little surprised he didn't try and put it across goal. Maybe that was just kind of we get this way where like when you have something in your mind and you're expecting it to happen, and then all of a sudden you just got to panic and try and put one on. You're not necessarily thinking, placement as much as or as calm as we've known from Teutschert in the past. We've really talked him up a lot last year about his composure within the box and way he put it in, and it just felt like there was just a bit like they were just a little bit off as far as the cohesion. I really like that word that you used. I did like at halftime though, Olaf, which I do like this little aspect. I don't know if you like it where they're interviewing the coaches before they head into halftime. It kind of reminds me almost like a football or basketball. You're seeing a little bit of the sideline, but I like that he wasn't just like I'm liking what I'm seeing or just that easy answer. He kind of laid it. He's like, we should be up 2 or 3-0 right now. Like, too many wasted chances. Like he was honest on there. And then I mean, he was right. You look back at that, first half, as much as we were absorbing pressure and gave away a lot of chances, we really should have been up, 2 or 3-0. Finally we got a little bit of luck our way with the first goal with Choo Choo, finishing it off and just on the corner spillage that happened with LA. But you look at the Teutschert chance there. Like I said, there were a lot of chances where if a pass goes to the correct run that the run's reading, they're in on goal. And then, man, that Tots header right at the end of half was just like, to me, I almost had this worrying feeling where it's like, man, here we go, 1-0. We have these clear cut chances. In the past, we've seen how much that has come back to bite us, where we feel like we left a lot of goals on the table and then we just don't finish out these games very well. So, credit to them at least finishing off the chance. The other thing that I liked, we'll just stick with the first half as far as that first goal goes, is, Twellman kind of tweeted this out, and I've seen a couple other people put it out, is, a lot of people were a bit real upset that, City didn't make more of a push as far as going for Royce. But if you look at that first goal, Royce is just standing there.
Yeah,
I mean, in no man's land. There
yeah.
was just almost no hunger. And I know they kept bringing up that his leg was taped up very heavily. And we know Royce has, kind of an injury history. And with everything that the Galaxy's kind of going through right now, who knows what kind of, maybe he just put out let me just get through this kind of game. But what I loved was on that first goal. Yeah, it was, a lot of luck that was involved with, the spillage from the keeper, but you saw a lot of hunger from the City players going after that ball. And then, Teutsch finding space and finishing it off. But, I like seeing that side of City. I know we get a lot of grief for not going out and signing these huge names, but what we have gone out and signed is a lot of like, hungry players, it feels like. And so, I was really happy to see that, that at least coming out of the, within the first half. And then, right out, they come out the second half and you see a higher pushing line. Maybe that was just realizing like, hey guys, we can't just keep absorbing this pressure. And I know City was still really good as far as defensively and keeping their shape. And a lot of their chances outside of like that Ramirez chance and then Royce cutting in, it was, Peck taking shots from outside. Now, all it takes is one of those to be hit a little bit sweeter and Burki not have an outstanding game that he did. And then we're talking about probably a different result this game goes. But I was at least happy that it seemed like majority of their chances were coming from shots outside the box and we weren't really giving up, defensive lapses like we saw a lot last year. So it was nice seeing that. And then going into the second half, seeing a little bit more pressure, trying to kind of, you know, keep them on it and then still, feeling like we were the ones kind of creating more of their chances early on. And then obviously, the two goals come later. But did you see, changes that you would like to see? So far we've been pretty happy with adjustments that Olaf's been making so far. I know we'll get a little bit later into the substitutions. We'll kind of talk. I want to get your opinions on those. But, did you like as far as the early second half adjustments that you saw?
Yeah, the immediate changing the line of engagement and not really going like full on press, but just making it to where the Galaxy were going to have to go 120 yards to score, and it wasn't going to be easy on them, knowing that they're shorthanded, putting that pressure on them. And I want to go back to, that the first goal, the Teutsch goal, yeah, it's a scrappy goal. The goalie runs into his defender, and then Klaus gets a boot on it, and it deflects, and Choo Choo buries it. Those goals happen when you're hungry and when you put pressure on the other team. You make the other team execute, and you're gonna get goals. I'm gonna go back to the first season when the high
Say, what
press.
did we do so well the first year? Yeah.
That you're putting pressure on the other team, and look what LA did to us. I mean, Kyle Hebert had a great game for the most part, but his one mistake was a really bad turnover where they just put him on his heels and forced him to make a decision. So when you're forcing the other team to execute, that's what if you just let them walk through the game. This isn't a Sunday league. This isn't a Sunday stroll, right? Like if this team wants to compete, they're going to have to do two things. They're going to have to put pressure on the other team and make them execute like that. I think this is what you're going to see is a lot of this sitting back 5-3-2, absorbing pressure, trying to hit on the counter, trying to score on set pieces, because this team doesn't have a Ricky Puig or a Gabriel Peck or a Messi. They have a bunch of hard-nosed, skilled players, but I would say nobody on this squad is going to be considered, for the MVP at this. Nobody's going to be a Golden Boot candidate on this team, most likely. It's just you're just not set up that way, and that's fine. But if you're going to play this way, and we saw this kind of play out in the end of the first half on the Galaxy's part, or their lack of playing out, and then City's part at the beginning of the second half. How many times is the difference between success and failure just simple execution? That's all it is, man. Like these guys aren't going out and doing things that are like spectacular. They're just executing basic things. Case in point, the goal scored in the first half. If that goalie just punches the ball away or catches the ball, simple execution, calls his guy off, it's 0-0 at half, right? Instead, they drop it. City pounces on the chance. Beginning of the second half, simple back, absorb pressure on defense, dispossess the Galaxy of the ball, simple 1-2 touch passes, play Marcel into space, and he just buries it, and he executed. And that's the difference in the game right there. What did we say? The Galaxy had 23 shots on goal?
24.
20, not on goal. 24 shots. 10 of those being, 8 of those being on goal. Burki had 8 saves. But 10 of those shots were in the box. they didn't execute. They had opportunity, just like City did. City had 10 shots in the box, rang the woodwork once, missed a couple of sitters, missed an easy head ball. The difference between success and failure so often is just simple execution. And in the second half, Olaf made adjustments to put his team in a better place to be able to do that.
No, that's a great point because you look at that game against San Diego, what did we keep harping on that, was a big difference maker in the games? We were trying to do these fancy flick
Yep.
passes and didn't just, where we've said this, for the past couple years, where City has been so great is there's when they're the most simple, when they just play the game as simply as you can. I love that you brought that up. Like, yeah, that's a great point. Like, City just, I don't see really anybody unless Burki just, has another crazy season vying for that MVP candidate or the Golden Boot, but what they can do is play simply and just be successful. I liked one thing that we loved about that first year was there were so many goal scorers spread across the team, and that's because the team did so many simple things well and everybody played their role. We don't need some fancy guy because when you rely on fanciness or just that one guy, say that one guy goes down. You look at Ricky Puig. Ricky Puig went down and is going to be out for the majority of the season. And look at the difference it's made in the LA Galaxy. And when we just do the simple things, especially that second goal, I think is a perfect example of it. Simple defense, simple layoff from Klaus, but yet that's not that easy. But he makes it look so easy because of the skill he has. Simple layoff, Hartle goes in transition. It's a great play. Choo Choo leads him off. And, one thing that I'm super impressed with, and this game really brought it out as far as I never really noticed it. I was always kind of surprised why Hartle played out on the wing. He's not really the most pacey of players. He's very skilled on the ball and dribbling. But what he does really, really well is how he takes balls in full stride. And that second goal is a great example of it because you can attest to this when like I get going, especially on Thursday nights. If I get going running and I go that touch, there's a good chance that I'm falling over and not continuing on with the ball. That looked like a play that he should have fell over, but he keeps his balance so well as this delicate touch that he has to put it into his path to continue on that pace. And that's what gives him the step on the defender and allows him to finish. And it's a great finish. But that was just such a beautiful counterattacking goal. And it just felt like that was something, and it didn't come long after. What was it, in the 49th minute?
48
So
or
5 minutes
49,
after
yeah.
a half. So that just shows to me that, and they kind of touch on this before with like all sports. There's not as much like actual adjustment and breakdown as we may think there is at half. A lot of times it's players getting either worked on, they're getting, rehydrated, refueled up, and it's a quick, simple tactical changes here and there. So credit to Olof in the time that he did have. It showed in those first couple minutes in contrast to the end of the, how the first half was going. It doesn't have to take a lot. He probably just goes in there and guys, we're doing the same things we were kind of falling into last game. Let's just simplify it, play our game, look for these things. We're going to run a little bit different high line. We saw that in there, and then not long after, we see a beautiful counterattacking goal.
Yeah, and that run, man, and I said that we don't have people doing spectacular things, but that's a 60-yard run to goal. Like you go back and watch that play, he starts that play on his own half. Klaus,
Yep.
and I texted you guys, I said, Klaus won't get an assist for this, but Klaus is the one that sprang that play with just a real simple little square pass, just a simple little wall pass. And then he plays it, and then Cello plays it out to Choo Choo, who plays a brilliant ball to him. And then, like you said, he kind of hit the afterburners. And I don't know, that goal and then the goal that was scored later and then the goal that Teutert scored, I wonder if there was something in scouting about going high near post on that keeper. Because there were
Yeah,
two
that's a
goals
great
high
point.
near post, and Choo Choo missed his high near post too. Klaus hit his post on the near side, right? Wasn't it on the near side?
No, he went far. He went
Okay,
far
it was
post
on
on
far
his,
post. I'm
but
thinking something, but yeah, I wonder if that was part of it. But no, it's an outstanding counterattack, and I hope that that's what a lot of what you see from this team. And I just wanted to say one more thing about Klaus before we move to the subs. You're talking about doing the simple things, and I think that one thing that he does better than Betcher is he has the tendency to recognize the moment a lot more and know, okay, this is when I need to hold the play up. This is when I need to take a foul. This is when I need to just wait till I get double teamed and then get a throw in. I would say he probably did that 3 or 4 times to kind of alleviate that pressure in the first half where he was the target player. He picked the ball up on his own side of the pitch And rather than try to go 1-on-3 or 1-on-4 or even play the ball back into his defense, which was kind of a danger area, he would just take a whack to the back of the leg and go down, or wait till the defender came to him and let the defender play it out of bounds. It's just really simple little heady plays like that. Just like on the goal, just being in the right place to go challenge the ball. Stuff like that. And it's never going to show up in the box score. And people are going to say, oh, your DP should be scoring more goals. Like, I don't care. I'm so sick of thinking of these guys in terms of like DP and homegrowns. Like, they're footballers, man. They're just out there to win. They don't care how they score. They don't care how they win. They just want to pick up 3 points. That's all they want.
That's yeah, I really agree with that too. Where the DP is kind of almost unnecessary pressure on a player. I told you this pre-show. I hate the way that I almost watch Klaus play now because there is so much talk about him on the socials and everything like that. So this game here in particular, I watched Klaus just to see like, all right, let me see if all the noise that's going on has justification, or when you see Klaus getting that starting role. We highlighted. I thought the first 2 games Klaus was actually pretty impressive outside of being on the score sheet. I thought he played really well. And so I was watching him like really detailed to see like, all right, unnecessary passes here or there or giving up the ball. And I just could not find it in that game.
Nope.
I know he didn't end up on the score sheet, or he, like to your point, he doesn't get an assist on that play, but he held possession really, really well in very tight areas. There were a couple plays where he was walking the tightrope on that sideline, and then sprung. I think he sprung Wallem a couple times, Tots down the line. I know he played in Toychert a couple times. Like those are the plays that like don't get the credit that they deserve. We had that submission last week on what are the things that you're noticing that maybe somebody else isn't noticing. That's the type of stuff we're noticing is, that third pass before the goal happens. Like that's a lot of times what ends up making or breaking the play. And you think about the issues we had in the first half, as well as that whole San Diego game, it could have been real easy for Klaus to go back and revert back to those stupid flick passes.
Yep.
But what does he do there? A simple layoff to Hartle. And then your point again, like we also talked about, credit to Hartle for seeing that run that far, knowing where I just need to get to this spot. And if he can hold this up for even just a split second to give me time to get there, I'll get there, and then we'll put away the ball. So, yeah, I think, that'll kind of transition us into that is 60th minute. We saw, Betcher and Jarl come in for Toychert and Klaus and really kind of felt a shift within the game. I know you and I are both not fans of just parking the bus, settling back, especially that early on. And for me, I'm really not a big fan of it is when I don't see the need for it yet. I don't really like the park the bus route anyway. I don't ever want to invite pressure onto my team. I want to, try and just, if anything, ease the pressure that we're getting and just try and maintain possession. But up until that point, I thought City were still, hanging in there. I didn't feel like it was like, yeah, we anything was calling for a big adjustment at that point. So then to see both forwards going off, maybe, Toychert maybe would have made sense, still working on fitness. He got his goal. He was kind of a little bit errant on some of his passes throughout the night. Maybe he gets a sub in there, but to take both off kind of seemed wild to me. And we saw a definite notice within the shift in the game. Where did you feel on it? Were you kind of like, yeah, some of this makes sense? Were you like, none of this makes sense? How did you feel about, those subs?
So in the moment, I didn't love it because I felt like you said, like they were still very active. I mean, at that point, like they had rung the woodwork. It probably should have been 3 or 4-0 at that point, just based on chances in the second half. But when you see now, Olaf kind of saw the game get too far open. I think that's what it was. I think he saw an opportunity to take the sting out of the game. And, they shifted to what we eventually figured out was a 5-4-1, which was really interesting with Wallem kind of coming inside a little bit more. And it wasn't a low block. I think that they had the width covered and they knew that the Galaxy were going to have to beat them through linkage play in the middle. So what do? You put another center midfield in there. You flood the middle. Now, when they first came out, there was a lack of communication, and I think that it could have been Chat City Tactics or it could have been Rockio or somebody that put out there that when you put extra defenders on the pitch like that, your problem is going to be okay, who has to cover who now? And that's kind of what happened. Like they got loose early and probably missed their biggest chance of the game, 8 yards out. And, I think that was Peck missed a sitter.
Yeah, I don't know how he missed
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it was an absolute sitter. It was a howler of a miss. But I think once they kind of got settled in and settled down, it really took the sting out of the Galaxy. I mean, the last 15 minutes of the match, there was really not a whole lot of room for them to attack. And
Yeah.
I don't other than that immediate, you know, right when the switch was made, there was a shift for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then everybody settled in and started possessing the ball more, and Betcher got into the game. And I mean, eventually you end up with a third goal out of kind of the same thing, like a really good counter. And how about our boy Heebs? How
I know,
about
right?
Heebs gets all the
I know.
flack from us included
Yeah.
about not being able to pass the ball. And I think that I read that he went 33 for 34 passing, and the one pass was the bad turnover that led to the chance. But he picks up an assist. He picks up a
Yeah.
dime to Betcher.
Here, here's the thing with Heaves. Like, I don't think we're ever against Heaves as far as his quality of passing. It's more like the. I would almost rather at times him go, 30 for 34, knowing that, three of those passes were him looking to spring somebody forward. I think where we get on him, at least from this podcast anyway, is 90% of those passes are typically either to Kessler or Burki.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit of like, sometimes you almost want him to take like you could tell he's just not as comfortable in
Yeah.
distribution.
You're
He's
right.
more he's more in there just for your straight up defense. And he's been phenomenal so far this year. So we're not going to credit him, but first off, when he got the ball, I was like, "What is he doing up there?" I know they sprung him to like outside back at that point, so he
Yeah.
was out on the left. But it was like all this time where we've had you playing wing back, looking for you to make those runs, and we can't find you anywhere. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, it took me a minute to realize 22. That is Hebert, right?
Yeah.
And then what a quality of a ball, opposite foot too,
It
played
was
to lead the bench.
beautiful. It was
Yeah,
beautiful.
it was just yeah, it was great. It was great to see him get in there, and boy, he you could tell he was happy with that because the smile that he had
Yeah.
while Betch was doing his ice cold celebration in front of the Galaxy fans was great. And to your point again, I mean, Betcher, I don't feel like he had a drastic impact when he came in, but you got to, hey, what you want from a striker if you're going to make that substitution is when that chance does come, you put it away. And I think that was probably his only chance that he had on goal throughout the night, and he buried it.
Yeah.
So
He's the closer,
that's
man.
what you want.
He's got
I told,
he's the closer. That if you can play that style where you're absorbing pressure the whole game, and then you can bring on a fresh striker at the end that you know is a good finisher, you gotta love it. Especially if you're 0-0 or not. Well, we're not always gonna be 0-0, I guess. But if you're tied late and that's who you're
yeah.
gonna bring, you're gonna bring somebody like that in. You gotta love that.
No, yeah, I agree. And, I text you guys the bummer is that it's, I still believe that, just to your point, I think we still run out what we just saw there because I do think that that is our best, like,
Yep.
you know, as far as quality and play and what we have to work with our starting 11. But you're going to have a lot of these people now on, so which who cares? They're like us, or their opinion really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's what the coaching staff matters. But you're going to have those people probably next game if Klaus gets that start. People going, Betcher scored last game. And they're going to overlook a lot of the stuff that Klaus did throughout that game that was really, really positive. And yeah, Betcher put away his chance. And, Klaus, he came close to a couple of his chances, and he probably could have had more had the pass found him in that spot. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, man, what better thing than have somebody who comes in and just, like you said, closes it out. And he did that. And, so, and again, credit to Heebs on the pass. A lot of it, to me anyway, it felt like chances from LA Galaxy were coming like from shots outside the box. We had that Roy shot that where he cut in and Burki made the save. You had that Ramirez chance that was, I mean, like you said, the fact that he got on frame and then that Peck wide open chance. But outside of that, it seemed like majority of their chances were City allowing them to take shots from outside the box. Their defense, still hasn't given up a goal yet. But were you happy with the defensive performance, even though there were allowed that many shots? Did you feel like, are you on the boat of like, hey, they can shoot it from out there all they want? Is, it's from there it becomes, onto within reason. Obviously, a lot of those shots were still contested. That's why I think what you say. I think 8 or 10 of them out of 24 were on goal. Yeah, 8 because he had 8 saves. So you figure that's quite a few that weren't even on frame or contested. Are you fine with that kind of defensive where it's kind of like you're going to have to beat us with something impressive rather than, giving up these, backdoor chances or them working through our defense?
I mean, it was
Were
still
you happy with the defensive
it
performance?
was it was too many high danger chances by far.
Yeah,
10,
I agree.
10 shots in the box. That's where the majority of the saves that Burki had to make were shots in the box. So you can't do that because those inevitably are going to go in more, regardless of whatever XG has to say. Shots in the box are high danger. So you gotta cut that out. I think it was. I think that this was a. I mean, you've only got 3 matches, but this was Olaf's best managerial performance so far. He also recognized, and I forgot about the trio of subs that he made in '75 to bring on Watts, Baumgartel, and Morales too. So
Yeah.
you went even deeper in your 4-5-1, and you had fresh legs, and that's really when things started to shut down for the Galaxy from an offensive standpoint. You have a very deep, albeit conservative and defensive squad. But I was more disappointed with the inconsistency of the midfield effort on defense this time. It seems like I find ways to pick on Leuven every chance I get, but your eyes flow to the most important players on the field. And if you are going to be a six, if you are going to be a center defensive holding midfielder, you cannot let runners go through your line of vision unchecked. And I would say he did that 4 times to where the guy ran right through his sight line and didn't check him off to the defense. There was no communication and they were in. That cannot happen. Now, other times, the dude is running 30 or 40 yards to make a defensive play. So I don't know if it was just him being, you know what I mean, just trying to get up to match fitness. I thought he had a good game overall, but whoever the combination is, whether it's him and Durkin, whether it's him and Watts, him and Morales, whatever, those two have got to be as tight as possible in the midfield. Otherwise, you're creating those gaps between the line of center backs and the line of midfielders that good players thrive in. That's where Messi thrives in. And that's obviously going to the best ever. But finding that space between the defenders and the midfielders, that's what good players do. And it's twofold, right? Like the center mids have to be stronger, but the back line also, again, this is more in the first half and some of the second half, you can't retreat into your box. You have to hold your ground at some point. So it was it was a clean sheet, but I would say it was probably the worst effort defensively so far. I think they were better against San Diego, as in San Diego had less high danger chances than the Galaxy.
Yeah, and then that Colorado game was, I mean,
I
you
would
can't
just
really find
scrap that
fault
Colorado
from that.
game for the most part. Like that, it was first game of the season. It was a clean sheet. Don't get me wrong; they did great, and we'll take it. But I would say that by the time you come back around to play Colorado again, I would expect a completely different team on their
Yeah,
end,
no,
and
100%.
and maybe on
Do you
City's
all
end too. That could be the
Yeah,
case.
right. Do you also maybe give Leuven a little bit of credit as far as that miscommunicate? Like if you're, let's just say it is a miscommunication or just a comfort with, you got to figure probably going into the season, maybe he didn't anticipate having Watts as his partner the first 2 games. And then Durkin, being out and this is his first game back, not just getting back into a flow as far as your part. Because, as far as the center backing pair, that spine, as far as a partnership.
Yeah,
The wings, you're kind of out on your own and you're working with, your either defensive or offensive partner. But up that spine, if you're two strikers, you work off each other. If you're center mids pairing, you really need to be in a good flow. Same with your center backs.
yeah.
Do you maybe give a little as far as to your point, those where if he does have a defensive lapse, it's that runs through the middle where it's just still trying to figure out, do you have him? Do you have again, they are professionals. They should be able to communicate within there, or center backs. For me as a center mid, I always just loved the center back that would just tell me what the hell to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
tell me where to go and where to stand. Do you do you give them leeway as far as the partnership? Do you think, at this point we're 3 weeks in, they should have some cohesion no matter who he's with? He had a whole last season with Durkin, so they should be on a little better page. Or, do you think that's a factor at all, or do you think it's still just
Oh, it's a
something that's
huge
got to,
factor. Akil Watson, Chris Durkin are completely different players. I mean, Durkin wants to attack, 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 and I'll give him a lot of credit. He played a very conservative game for the style of play that we've seen him over the last year. Now, granted, it's a completely different position and a different formation, but I will give some leeway for the partnership because Watts is very much more stay home, hold their guy. But you got to figure it out, man. I mean, you've got this game against Seattle coming up, and they just throttled LAFC, and they are a deep team, and they're going to show you no quarter. And then they've got a midweek game, but they showed last week that they can roll 16 or 17. So it's luckily your mistakes that you're making and the chemistry that you're building, you're doing it during success. You're not having to fight through losses and dropping points while you're doing it. So you're succeeding and you're building at the same time. Again, they'll get better every week. The communication will get better. The center backs will get more comfortable. It could be something too where Kessler might feel like he has to drop off further because of the partners that he has, and that creates more space. Who's to say that Baumgartner might not be somebody that he has more faith in than a Hebert or a Yarrow, or a Horn, whoever. So they'll continue to get better. I think that if they go in with that mindset, that early second half more often, rather than absorbing all that pressure, I think they're really going to make some waves in the Western Conference.
if you're Olaf right now, everybody's fit. Who would you love to see? Who do you think best complements Leuven right now as that center mid partnership? To me, I think it's still I haven't seen enough of Morales to be able to say it's him.
Man, he looks
And
good
this
though.
isn't it.
He looks
I
so
know, I
good when
know.
he's in the game.
He to me, if anything, the thing I would love to see Leuven a little bit more is being involved in the offensive end.
Yeah,
I know, and
yeah.
I feel like Morales would complement
Would
him
give
the
him the
most. Durkin,
opportunity to be able to do that more. Yeah,
yeah, Durkin is your mile getter. Durkin's going to run up your mile. He's going to work for you,
yeah,
and so is Akil Watts. But Akil Watts is, this isn't a shot at Watson. I'm not trying to sound it mean, but I would put him as far as skill wise, maybe third on that list between Durkin and Morales at this moment. I think Akil has. I think also going against Akil is he probably came into this year going, I don't know if I'm playing right back, center mid. I don't,
yeah,
I'm kind of the new utility guy, and we love him for that. When he was subbed in, he came into a right back role, so he's still trying to fill many hats at this moment. I just every time I see Morales on the field, I think, boy, he would complement Leuven really well because he just looks so calm on the ball. He stays back. He just cleans up the dirty work, and then Leuven can have a little bit more freedom going forward. And that was one thing that we liked with like kind of Blom, and Blom didn't really go forward, and he just kind of held back at least. So Leuven had that freedom going forward. Morales is definitely a step up from Blom as far as skill and comfort on the ball, to where I would almost love to see that partnership in there. I don't
yeah.
know.
Maybe
Do you
not
have a
even go
favorite
so much.
pairing?
Maybe not even for Leuven to go forward so much, but just have a little bit more freedom because I think with Cello playing in front of him the way he does and the way he sits in that space between the two strikers and the mids, I don't think you need Leuven to step up and play like an 8 role. I think a 6 is perfect. But yeah, he does need a little bit more freedom. And who's to know? I think Morales is the break in case of glass guy, man. I don't know that you'll see him start just because it's kind of a redundant skill set with Leuven, right? Like it's a good distribution, good in holding your position, whereas Durkin and Watts are more the get after it type of guys for the most part. So I I think your best bet for your starting 11 is what you put out there. I mean, Hebert is not getting pulled off the field at this point. They haven't given up a goal, and he just got an assist, and he's playing well. So Baumgartel, although he's was one of the big signings, I wouldn't bench Hebert at this point. I don't think you can. So I think that that's your 11, man. I think that that's what you go with.
Where I could see Baumgartel, and just from where he came in position wise, getting into the starting 11, it would be him replacing Horn, and then either Horn playing that wing back role, or Wallem and Horn just kind of, as far as a rotation standing,
Yeah, if you're
is
more
if hard
defensive, yeah,
if Baumgartel's gonna get into that starting 11,
yeah,
is because when he came in, he did come in on Kess's left, and that was kind of where Horn was sitting. And then if you're not wanting to take Horn out, you just push him up a little bit higher, and yeah, to a more defensive standing, kind of like we saw in game one. And then if you're maybe looking offensive, or if Horn's needing it, it's so tough because, man, like, you can't really find a fault in those back three right now. So
no,
Baumgartel's also already thinking, like, guys, give up a goal so I get a chance in here. Something.
yeah.
It's got to be frustrating, for him sitting there thinking, like, yeah, you can't really, outside of rotation or rest, justify, taking one of those guys out at this
I
moment.
tell you who really doesn't have a spot right now is Celio.
I know, I
I
know.
mean,
It's
I was disappointed not to see him, but when you see how that game played out, it's kind of like, well, if you wanted to go to that 5-4-1, he's not a defensive player. So unless you're going to play him up top by himself, which that's not really the type of player that called for when you're playing that defense like that, or that formation like that. I just have a feeling he's going to have a tough time getting to the side without some injuries. Now, maybe when cup time comes around, he starts to get more minutes. But yeah, I would have loved to see him work him into the squad, but I don't think that it was. You got everybody playing too well right now.
yeah, I think the formation doesn't set up well for him being out wide, so he's going to have to fill one of those two top spots. And right now it's kind of looking like a if they go a double sub with the two top up top at this moment, because it looks like it's either Klaus and Teutschert, or Betch and Teutschert at this
Yeah,
point, and then you got
yeah,
Klaus or Betcher the first off the bench, or maybe if they're seeing a weakness in dribbling, that's when within the defense, if it's going to be more I feel like it's going to be a situation for him to kind of get his breakthrough on this year. Is It's going to be Olaf reading the game and thinking, where we could really destroy them is with
yeah,
some one-on-one dribbling, and who better right now
yeah.
than Celio
I'd
on the
like to
team.
see him get some run on that either that left side midfield or right side midfield. But at the back three, back five, he just doesn't fit that profile. Now, like if they were to run like a 4-4-2 or go back to the 4-2-3-1, yeah, maybe, but it's going to be tough for him. I just feel like
Yeah, I agree. Final thoughts on this week?
great 3 points. Got to be more clinical. I mean, I hate to be critical in a 3-0 win, but it very easily could have been a 6-0 win. It very easily could have been 3-3 at the end of the first half if the Galaxy are more clinical. It's kind of looking like that
Yeah.
Miami game from last year. So, got to be more clinical, more attention to detail, and it'll come. The biggest thing I've taken away from the first three games is in defense, they are disciplined. And you can tell that they are drilled and disciplined. There is very little diving in. There's very little vacating space to wildly pressure a ball like there were under Carnell and Hack. The defensive discipline is there. And the foundation for good teams is laid in the backfield for sure. So
Oh, yeah,
that's really exciting.
that's a great observation there. Do you think? I mean, it's got to be with the experience that Olaf had
Oh
coming
yeah.
in, maybe
Yeah.
drilling that type of stuff in there, and
Yep. And he's got the
even
personnel.
yeah, you kind of even brought up Durkin. Like, he hasn't been as wild and as crazy
No.
in some of his tackles as well this year. He's
And
kind
he
of been
had
a
a
little
good
bit
game.
more.
He had a couple of great tackles in the midfield. So it's not
Yeah.
like he can't do it. He just wasn't being asked to do it before.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, my takes away are it was important 3 points, because I think if you don't come out of there with 3 points, especially against the weakened LA team, there's a lot more discussions that are going on this week than what are be going on. Whether it's just finishing off and stuff like that. But glad that we got it away. Glad that you could start to see a little bit more brimming of confidence from some of the players leaving out of there, which is great to see. And they're going to need it coming up this week to take on Seattle back at home. We will have that preview in our episode later this week. But you know who else is impressive there, Dave?
Who's that?
It's R2L Wellness. No
Oh
matter
yeah,
what
they
you're
are.
looking, Yeah, no matter what you're looking for as far as your health and fitness goals, they've got you covered. And they even have great things that are going on within the place. As we mentioned last week, they got a couple exciting things, but they just added on March 22nd at 11:15 a.m. They're having a knee health workshop, which I'm definitely going to take advantage of because of my knee issues. It's going to be held by Dr. Cara Compton and Dr. Carly Donahue with Powered by Movement. That's just one of the amazing things they offer. Anything that you're looking for as far as getting yourself moving the best you physically can, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's personal training, they've got you covered. And then right upstairs, all under one roof, they've got body movement specialists, masseuses, PTs, everything that they're going to make sure that you're doing everything proper and safe and moving your best. It's at Ready to Live Wellness, so make sure you go check them out at 1530 South Kings Highway Boulevard and online at R2L Wellness. Dave, I know we ran the home kits this year and people were a little still on the fence as far as the home kits go, but you know where the apparel that nobody's questioning or nobody's disappointed with, it's Warrior Logo Wear Studio or Warrior Logo Wear.
No one questions the quality of Warrior logo wear, whether it's got a collar or not. By the way, David would hate this. Rocking the old
I'm
school.
loving it. When you came in, I was like, there we go. But you know what? It's a full
It
collar.
is a full collar, and I love a full collar. And if you want a full collar or no collar, they can hook you up at Warrior Logo Wear, 12 East Main Street, Mascoutah, Illinois. They're there to meet all your individual and team sportswear needs, collar or not. T-shirts, hats, hoodies, team sports uniforms, promo swag. Chris and his gang are a veteran owned business and they bring that same dedication and discipline from their service time into every project they take on. Get your custom apparel quickly without sacrificing quality. Warrior Logo Wear will meet tight deadlines with ease, and the material that they use is top quality. Your prints stay vibrant and durable even after several times in the wash. They use top notch materials and the best technology out there. Warrior Logo Wear can also bring your brand to life online. They can help you launch your custom web store, and they handle everything, Eric. Everything from setup to shipping. These custom web
Love it.
stores include a fully customizable online store with your products featuring your logo. Or if you know what, if you're like me and you can't draw to save your life, they'll help you design a logo. How about that? Where are you going to go? You get to get that kind of service. Design, create,
Nowhere.
everything. They help you there. No order minimums. Perfect for any size event or company. These store setups are free. And man, you know we hate hidden costs. Will it Warrior Logo Wear?
Oh,
There are none.
man.
No hidden costs. You know what you're paying up
That's right.
front. They'll ship your products directly to your customers or employees. So check them out. They're on all the socials on Instagram at Warrior Logo Wear, all lowercase. On Twitter at Warrior Logo Wear, capital W, capital L, capital W, or at warriorlogowear.com, official studio sponsor of the Southland supporters.
That's right. That's right, baby. So next, we're going to move into a little city news before we wrap this thing up. I'll just kind of kick it off with the win on Sunday. City moved up to sixth in the Western Conference standings with 5 points. So good to see them kind of jump at least, mid playoff picture at this moment. So I hope to build off of this, and especially with an important game coming up Saturday, it could be a real big, swing early on in the season. It's a whole, up and down of the table until teams kind of settle in, kind of like your point, throwing away that first week because you never know what you're going to get. But they're trending on the right direction. Keep building that momentum. Tough game, but at least it's at home. Got to have it. Like you said, can't drop points at home. And so hopefully they continue up that leaderboard. A cool stat, City just keeps seeming to make all these sorts of records, but with their shutout road victory on Sunday night, St. Louis City became only the fifth team in the past decade to not concede a goal within the first 3 games of the season. So, we were the first team to go back to back unbeaten, first 5 games unbeaten in the
Mm-hmm.
season, and now we're one of the few teams within the past decade to not get
I
a goal.
think they said they're the
Great,
11th team in MLS history also to not allow a goal in the first 3 games.
really.
Yeah,
That's a crazy
that's
stat.
pretty wild.
Crazy stat. So, again, credit to the defense and just, really, I know we say credit to the defense, but again, to your point that you brought up, it is a full team effort. It does start from the press that you get from the forwards, the shape that you get from the midfield, but the cohesion that you get from that defense. So while it's great to shine the light on the defense because they are performing so well, it's just great overall team performance coming out of the team, as well as team performance. We got to give credit to both Cedric Toichert as well as Roman Burki for being included in team of the match day, and Burki being player of the match week with those huge 8 saves. I mean, this was a weird game because last year and the year prior, it felt like the games that Berkey played out of his mind, we either came away with a draw or we thought like, boy, it could have been a lot worse of a loss had it not been for Berkey. Whereas, man, this is great to see just one of those amazing performances and then, a comfortable, we'll say, win at the end. But like you said, that game could have easily been 3-3 or a really bad loss had it not been for the performance he had that
Yeah,
week.
the first two clean sheets, you could say, oh, the defense did a fantastic job because he only faced one shot. This was a Roman Burki clean sheet, man. This was vintage Roman Burki, best goalkeeper in MLS. By the way, there was a poll that came out this week. The MLS executive unanimously polled Burki as the best keeper in the MLS. So
We already
perfect
knew
timing.
that.
Perfect timing, right? He's just pedigree, man, just quality pedigree, and that he just loved, and I want to say, and he just loved that shutting out Royce's team too, and making
Royce,
that
yeah.
big save against Royce. But I also wanted to say, man, part of that whole broadcast, like them just hyping up this Berkey Royce relationship, and I'm sure that they're friends, but do we really know if they're that close of friends? I mean, like it's just like long lost brothers, and it was just weird. I know that they're looking for ways to drive interest, but man, that was weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Storylines and whatnot, but
Yeah,
yeah.
you gotta like, and even I'm sure it was a joke because I can't imagine they're letting Berkey out of the team hotel to go have pretzels with the opposing team
It was
beforehand.
such
But
a
like,
weird go to his
it's
hotel to
like
have Bavarian pretzels. Like what?
because because here's the thing, I know it's a joke and everything like that. Say he has a bad game and we lose 4-0. What are you going to see on the socials right away? It's just going to be like, well, what the hell was he out having pretzels with Royce for? Or like that type of stuff. Like, I mean, I know it's just, and hey, I do want to say this at least. So far this season, I don't feel like Twelman's been too outlandish with any of his. A lot of times when I've been finding what he's been saying, weirdly enough, I've been like, yeah, that's a decent point, decent point. Now, you know, he still throws in the classic Twelman line where it's like, all right, come on now, like let's just be a little bit more realistic here. But I will give him a little bit credit;
He,
it has been a little bit better so
he
far this
had
year.
he had an all-time one-liner, and Katie and I were laughing about it last night and laughing about it again when I was rewatching the game earlier. He was talking about Harbor Miller, who, if you didn't pay attention to the broadcast, this kid is 17 years old and he had his first start for the Galaxy yesterday. So that's awesome. He's a SoCal kid. He was a Galaxy fan. Really cool story. But he kept talking about him, and at one point he made a play where he just lost a ball or whatever, and I think he said something to the effect of sometimes when you're inexperienced, you don't have that experience. It's like what?
Yeah, that is an
Like
all-time Twelman line right
where
there.
am I, man? Like it was so good. But yeah, no, you know what's, that one meme where it's like when the person that you dislike the most makes a point that you agree with, like he
Mhm.
did that like
Yeah,
6 times last night, to where I would be thinking about something and he would say something along the same lines. I'm like, damn it, like maybe he does know
I
what
think
he's
I
talking about most of the time.
I think I texted you something of what I was seeing, and then he said it not long after that, and it was just like this joy came over me of like, oh, I saw that, and it's like, oh
It's like when
man, like
David
I'm
agrees
agreeing.
with me. Like I feel like I'm in a wrong position no matter where I am
It
if he
makes you,
agrees with me.
it almost makes you question what you just said. It's
It
like, you know
it
what? Maybe I
does.
am
Yeah,
wrong.
it
Maybe I
does.
am wrong
David's the
on this
David's
game.
the Twelman of this show. It's unfortunate.
One thing they did kind of, bring up, or he brought up, Berkey contract year. We said this at the beginning of the year. It seems like every game I get a text from somebody saying like, is he leaving? Is he leaving? Is he leaving? You kind of gave your opinion a little bit earlier in the year on one of our shows. Like, where are you drawing the line on what it takes to keep Berkey? Like, what is it like? at his age, and the fact that he did get interest from European clubs like Copenhagen and stuff like that, do you think he's happy where he's at, being the man, being like settled in here? I think a lot of people brought up that his girlfriend, I think, lives in Chicago or somewhere within
Mm-hmm.
the area
Yeah.
or something like that. So he seems comfortable here, but I think there's always going to be that drive from a player. And, with him kind of realizing like it's either now or never with my age and stuff to still have that shot. So if you're City, though, where are you kind of drawing the lines on like, we really want to keep him? He's kind of the face of our franchise. He's our best player. But at the same time, we can't go beyond this just to appease
Yeah.
him. We have to be thinking about the team first.
I think you have to identify when he stops making your team better as it relates to who else you could sign with those resources. And I know that's kind of a
Yeah.
cop out of an answer, but if you get to the point where he's how old is he? 32?
33, I believe. Yeah.
33. So he's 33. So if you re-sign him, say you give him a 2 or 3 year deal, by the end of that deal, he's a 36, 37-year-old keeper. Keepers don't generally age like field players do, and he's playing the best of his life right now. So, I mean, is he going to keep you from signing some big asset or some? It's not like you have a goalie coming up in your system that you're just dying to get minutes to. I think keeper is a devalued position in just in soccer in general. I mean, there's a handful of them in the world that you can identify as, damn, that dude is really good. And most of them is because they're really good at PKs or really good with their feet, or, they're Jordan Pickford and they just make more noise than anybody. So you don't want to lose him. And the fans do love him. And, the fan reaction to losing guys like Indy and
Yeah.
AZ so far has not been great, but also this is a businessman, and it's not a business with margins like the NFL, so you can't afford to have guys that linger on bad contracts. I mean, bad contracts can sink you. I think it's more like the NHL than anything.
Who
Where
knows that more than me,
yeah,
man? Like, who knows that more than me? We're sitting on millions of dollars of players that are just
yeah, but you're also
worthless. Yeah,
sitting
I
on
get it.
hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, so I don't want to hear it.
No, we're not. Didn't you see the article
Did
today?
they lose
Like, had
money?
they said that had Ineos not put in that 300 million by Christmas, United was going to be like dead, no money.
Oh
Like the
wow,
Glazer
they go
the Glazers
into
have milked that club dry.
what is it?
Like
What is
there's
it
not.
called when they go into like administration?
Yeah,
Oh my God,
they
can
said they
you
were. Yeah,
imagine if Manchester
I
United went into administration?
never would have been in my
Oh,
wildest
that's
dreams, and then
crazy.
all of a sudden it's a real
That's just
reality
one of
that
the worst ownership groups in the history of sports.
it's got to
If
be.
you're not
It's got
familiar
to
with
be.
what the Glazers have done to Manchester United and you're interested, look it up because it's pretty
If
bad.
you
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
if you want to get mad, just go
Well,
read the story about
unless
how
you're
they
a Man
are.
City fan
Unless you're
or
or
a
a
Chelsea
Chelsea fan,
fan
or
or
yeah,
a
and
Liverpool fan
basically,
or
if you like anybody other than United,
if you
and you want
dislike
to find
Man
a little,
United,
anytime that you're feeling a little weird about any of your sports teams' ownership, just go read that story, and you'll be like, you know what, that Kroenke wasn't that bad
oh
actually,
God,
if you put
don't
it
you
that way.
can't say that here.
No, we won't
Oh
ever
my
go that
goodness,
far.
that one's gonna cause problems.
Well, we'll move on to a more positive thing, but apparently City this week got the memo that they're supposed to thump on last year's champions 3-0 because City took down North Texas 3-0 as well in a very dominant fashion, as well as they were considered, I guess in City 2 or the MLS Next Pro, they don't go like team of the match week individually. They just go team of the match week. And this week, City was team of the match week with goals from looks like Charles McSorley and as well as Miggy Perez getting on the score
I
sheet. And it
saw
was a
that.
well taken goal I saw that he had.
Yeah.
But I loved your text and it made me really laugh out loud because David texts something about he hit his parlay. And then not much later after that, you're like, well, City win 3-0 and cash in that McSorley bet. And I
David
was like, oh,
Parlay, a City money line win, the over in corners, and a Brandon McSorley goal in a City 2 match. That would be epic.
yeah,
Just an
that
epic
would
wager. And somebody
that
would have
would
given
just
it to
been
him, I'm sure, at some point. But no, hey, good to see City 2 get off on the right foot. Man, Makai Joyner, I gotta think he's gonna see some first team time this year at some point too. But it's gonna be so hard for him to find minutes. But that kid, God, if that kid's not wearing city red someday, something is really wrong. If he's not featured, something's seriously gone wrong. McSorley's burying him too. But from all
Yeah.
accounts, Makai has just rocketed through the ranks first at Gallagher and then coming over to the City Academy. Just seems like a mercurial talent that we can't wait to see him get regular first team minutes.
I think unfortunately he's in that Celio boat right now, whereas his position is going to be tough to make his
Yeah,
way up. But
and luckily he could
again,
play City
like,
2 minutes though too. That's what's best for him.
to me, if he's not on that Open Cup roster, if you don't put that name in there and get him minutes within there,
Yep.
especially in the earlier rounds, that's where I feel like something's wrong.
Yep.
And then that's where you really open up the opportunity for that guy to get an opportunity somewhere else. And you hate to lose a talent like that. You want to get that story where you get this guy who came through the academy system
Yep.
and flourished. Speaking of the Open Cup, we're back in it, and tickets are going to go on sale Tuesday, March 11th. The draw for both the round of 32 and 16 will take place on April 17th. Tickets for those matches will go on sale to the public Tuesday, March 11th. Interesting note about those tickets is they're going to be general admission. So you're not going to be buying for a seat. It's going to be general admission.
Yeah.
And I know from what I saw on the socials and then kind of what we discussed, not really sure if that's the
So
best route.
the fine print came out a little bit in the last couple hours or so, and so like club seats are not going to be general admission. From what I read, supporter section is not going to be general admission. So that that makes a lot more sense. And this is twofold for me, like right, like we've been harping on let's figure out a way to get more kids in the park. This is it right here because if you're making any seat in the whole park $40, I still feel like that's a little high. I feel like if you were going to take a loss, just take a loss and make them 20 or whatever. But this is a good opportunity, right? If you've never been to a game before, get down there for the first couple of round games, $40 a ticket, get there early, go get a good seat. But true to city form and true to some of the supporter groups people, there's already bitching about, how making the tickets this cheap is a play by Carolyn Kindle and Don Garber somehow to sink the Open Cup. These people are just never going to be happy with anything.
This cheap?
They're
What are
just
you talking about? They're more than they were the first year.
I don't
And
follow the
people didn't
logic,
show up
Eric.
to that.
I don't pretend to
And
follow the logic. They were the same people that were cheering to boycott the Champions Cup are the ones that are going to cheer to not go to this because of the general admission. It's unreal.
they
And
just look for reason to be unhappy. We
miserable.
finally
Yeah,
get,
just
you get
miserable
back in
people.
the Open Cup, and then people are complaining that it's general admission.
And
It's
it's
this cheap. I don't.
yeah.
We're still one of the most expensive tickets in the league.
And listen, David always
You could go to regular MLS
yeah.
tickets in different stadiums for $20 or less,
And
and
listen,
then you're talking about like this is too cheap.
David always talks about how the people on social media are the super minority, but they always seem like they're the loudest because there's the platform and then there's retweets and then there's engagement. So let's take it for what it is. But the fact that you still have a not a significant portion of the online presence that represents the fan base to still be unhappy about this is so stupid. I'm gonna try. I mean, the only issue with this game, the first game, is the dates up in the air. It's either the 6th or the 7th. If it's on the 7th, I can't go. Possibly could go if it's on the 6th. So I think it's a perfect opportunity. I think it'd be the perfect opportunity to go sit somewhere where we don't normally sit, and season ticket holders get them for $30 instead of 40.
Yep.
So I think it's a perfect opportunity to do it and to see maybe a USL team or something like that too. So I'm excited about it. I wish they played that and well, there will be Leagues Cup, right? They're still playing the Leagues Cup later. Oh, they didn't make Leagues Cup this year.
No, remember they had that.
That's
new,
right.
This
They've
is
got
the whole
the new
format.
format.
Yeah, this
Okay.
year. Yeah.
I wish they played them both.
But
I want to see as many games as possible. So that's me.
I'm with you on that boat, and I think that's what we grew up watching was as much football as we
Yeah.
can. And you make adjustments with your roster, and that's where we get to see the Mackay Joiners
Yep.
and the McSorleys and the Vensels. That's where they get those chances. This
Yep.
is where remember 2 years ago, Celio. That's where he had his big breakout was the Open Cup.
Yep.
Like that's where you get those guys in front of people, and that's also where you get people in front of those guys. we talk about it all the time with City 2. Like, if you can't make it to a regular game, go see a City 2 game. And now even more, now you're getting to see the first team, or at least majority of the first
Yep.
team that, in the Open Cup. And so, yeah, I think I agree with you. I think a lot of the times the loud ones that come through are the ones that, they put stuff out there just to get people
I don't
riled
need
up.
them.
There's a couple people on there that I know that do it every week just for fun, but it's kind of because they know it's going to get engagement. But, to ever take shots at ownership and say that they're purposely trying to sink anything is just
And it's the usual
outlandish.
suspects. I don't think you have to really wonder who it was that was the main one driving that. It's pretty regular. But like you said last year, we want you there, but we don't need you there. We'll fill that place up
That's right.
without you. So,
I look at the field and the players on the field. I
yep.
don't care if I'm. That'd be cool, actually. Just me in the stadium all by myself. They'd
Yay.
finally hear me yelling at them, and maybe I'd finally get a
Well, then,
Burki
yeah,
jersey
if
for
you were
my wife.
harassing people, then it would be easier to point you out. That's the problem.
Yeah, I forgot about that bad thing again. Last a bit of news that I have over here is just that U.S. Soccer announced that it will complete the bid process to host the 2031 FIFA Women's World Cup, which we were kind of talking a little bit pre-show. I think '99 was the only other time that the women have hosted the World Cup, and being one of the top ranked teams for years and years, just continuing to grow. The NWSL just continues to grow, and what better way to continue to showcase how well just the country can support women's soccer than to host the Women's World Cup and be competitive within it, which would I really we kind of talked about this last week on what will it take for local radio to kind of praise City more, and we said something about a playoff run. Well, what could grow the women's game just that much more than a competitive run in a World Cup in your own backyard? So I think it'd be really cool. I think it'd be smart as far as FIFA if they were to reward the women U.S. that bid, and so we'll see how that goes. But Dave, you got anything else as far as City news goes?
No, actually, it's the second time that the United States has hosted the Women's World Cup. I just looked that
Oh,
up.
okay.
I'm sorry. There is. Did we talk about the women's special friendly that they're playing against China to honor Becky Sauerbrunn? Did we
Yeah.
talk about that last week? Okay,
Yeah.
that's
We covered
cool.
that last week.
Man, it
Yeah,
would be so
very
cool
cool.
to have a women's World Cup game in St. Louis. Like how outstanding
Oh,
would
it'd be
that be?
amazing.
That place would be
It's
so nuts.
it would be massive,
No, the only
massive.
thing that I really wanted to touch on, we haven't talked about our boys abroad in a while, but there were a couple Americans that had a good weekend. Obviously, our captain, my captain, he had a brace, he had a PK where he drew the penalty. I'm talking about Christian Pulisic. Drew the PK, scored the PK, and then had a late ball on the back post that he put in too. So awesome for him. Serginho Dest came back for PSV this week and played off the bench. That's
Saw that.
huge. That was a
Yeah.
horrendous knee injury that he had. So good to see him get back in. Musa had a really good game for Milan. Also, Johnny Cardoso had a good game for Betis. Anthony Robinson had a game. Chris Richards. We have not talked about any defender on the U.S. team other than Tim Ream for a while. Chris Richards is lighting it up for Crystal Palace. He had a midweek man of the match, I think, in one of the cup games last week or the week before. So great to see. And then obviously Josh Sargent is just on fire. Bring Josh home like now.
Yeah.
He scored again
It's
last
gaining
week.
traction online. It's gaining
Yeah,
traction
he
online.
scored again on Friday against Oxford. The kid's just he's lighting it up right now. And if he stays healthy, same thing with all these guys. They stay healthy.
Yeah.
This is what they're going to do. And not to leave out because he didn't hit the score sheet at all. Tyler Adams for Bournemouth is flying all over the field right now. He looks great. Really exciting. I think the international break's coming up soon.
Mhm.
I don't know that they have anything CONCACAF. They might have some international friendlies, but looking to get on a roll or continue their roll into World Cup 2026. So those are your
Yeah,
news and
it's it's
notes.
it's great seeing those guys get healthy and just start to see kind of what we could really be working with as far as going into this World Cup. And
Yeah, yeah.
I think expectations aren't crazy, but there's some expectations there with this talented young group of players, and I think it's starting to get that recognition with the success that they're having over in Europe right now
Yeah,
because it's not just
we need a couple more guys to get healthy. We need Pepe healthy. We need to get Balogun healthy. We need to shore up the back line and figure out who our damn keeper is. But yeah, it's exciting, man.
yeah.
It's every week. Like I've followed now basically every United States men's regular on FootMob now, from Joe Scaley to Pulisic, right? And so I get alerts on their FootMob ratings and their minutes played and all their stuff, and my phone is just pinging on Saturdays, man.
Yeah.
Like it's like crazy. So great to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Great to see. Well, that's another one in the books. We want to thank all our sponsors because without them, this show wouldn't be possible. We'll kick it off with our title sponsors, R2L Wellness. Make sure you go check them out at 1530 South Kings Highway Boulevard and follow them online at R2L Wellness, as well as that merch sponsor, the great Warrior logo wear. Make sure you go check them out at 12 East Main Street in Mascoutah. All the things that we've highlighted, they're phenomenal, and they're going to help you with any needs that you have, merch or setting up that website. As well as coming up in the episode later this week, we will have our preview of Seattle, and that'll be brought to you by STL Kalachi. Make sure you go check them out at 1530 South Kirkwood Road in St. Louis. And then everybody's favorite segment, we've got the Felix's Pizza Pub. South End Submissions brought to you by Felix's Pizza Pub for the best pizza and wings in the area. Definitely go check them out, especially for away games for the City on Tap Bar at 6401 Clayton Avenue in Dogtown.
I got to get this out here to all of our friends, but in particular our Catholic friends. So I had a conversation with EC, our boy EC, plays Thursday nights with us. He's the proprietor of the fine STL Kalachi in Sunset Hills. He sent us a message on Instagram. Wants to remind everybody, if you're Catholic, for the Lenten season, they have a special. It's a crab rangoon kolache.
When you told us about that, I like, oh, that sounds so good with that bread. It's a perfect combination.
It's the perfect combination if you won't stay away from meat during the Lenten season. It sounds wonderful. 1530 Kirkwood, 1530 South Kirkwood Road at the intersection of Kirkwood Road and Watson next to Highway 44. Also home of the original chicken enchilada kolache, but you can't have that on Fridays.
That's right. And I want to apologize to EC for missing him on about 10 passes this past Thursday. I'll get you nice time. Make sure you also check us out on all our socials as well. That way you keep up with all things South End Supporters. On Instagram, we're South End Supporters. Our Twitter and our Reddit is capital SES_podcast STL, as well as make sure you follow us on a Facebook page to keep up with all things South End Supporters. So for Eric Cole, myself, for the Monday Morning center back Dave Wyckoff, and for the state-bound David Heck, you've been listening to South End Supporters. We'll see you next week, and until then, let's go City.